Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
This is Bloomberg Businessweek. Insight from the reporters and editors who bring you America's most trusted business magazine, plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. Bloomberg Businessweek with Carroll, Massar and Tim Stenovec on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, everybody, you are listening to Bloomberg Businessweek. I'm Carroll Massar along with Stephen Carroll in for Tim Stenovec. This week, Stephen, of course, host of Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, but really nice to have you here in New York. And I'm just curious, do you talk about AI as much as we do?
Oh yeah, it's everywhere.
It is, right?
And I mean, look, it's also the question of every person that has a new idea or a new use for it makes you start to think then, well, what part of our lives are not going to be touched by AI?
Well, I love it when people say that AI is going to be a long time before like we really get impacted in terms of society, because I'm waiting for the AI anchors to come into the broadcast. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's also, it sounds like coming for lawyers.
Yeah, if we look, for many, it's already arrived. The legal industry is one that can see multiple consequences from the arrival of AI. So in one way, first of all, it's an extremely legally complex field. So the arrival of AI into a lot of industries is going to create a lot of work for lawyers. But there are other huge opportunities to revolutionize the way in which a sector, which, you know, sometimes has been thought about it being a bit old-fashioned, could change, and could change pretty dramatically. So to talk about this, we've got Eleanor Lightbody with us. She's CEO at Luminance, which has developed a legal large language model and recently raised $40 million as it expands into the Dallas market. Eleanor, great to have you with us on the program today. Can you, first of all, just explain to us, how does your technology work? Is this lawyer GPT?
Not quite. So look, I'm sitting here in New York at the moment and I'm looking outside a window, and there are people in every building, pretty much in every corner of this world, who are receiving contracts, they're reviewing them, they're processing them, and they're deciding what to do with them. As that stands, it's very time consuming, it's very manual, it's very expensive, and it can introduce a lot of risk. And so what Luminance is doing is that we're automating a lot of those low-level tasks that pretty much every business is faced with on a daily basis. But it's much broader than, well, I suppose it's much more specific than just a chat GPT wrapper. I think that's really, really important. We built a proprietary purpose-built large language model that was only trained on legal contracts. And that's really, really key, because if you were using something like ChatGPT to address problems in legal, I suppose because it's being trained across the whole internet, I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? Like creating a contract or writing a poem for you. But fundamentally, it's been trained to give you an answer at all costs. And when you're working in the legal environment, you need an AI that knows when to hand back the answer to the human and knows when it doesn't know the answer. And that's really what sets us apart.
I'm curious, has it been put to work yet?
Yes, absolutely.
So tell us how it's working out, and any snags or problems, and how you continue to tweak it.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, we have over 700 customers now around the world. And in the US alone, in the last 18 months, our US customers have increased by 225%, with the likes of AMD all the way through to Panda Express and Hitachi, all using us. And I think fundamentally how a business using us and why a business is using AI for legal, well, they're all faced with the same problem. They're all faced with exploding inboxes they're trying to get through. They're all faced with increasing regulations. They're all faced with having to answer business questions on a second-by-second basis. So they're looking at AI to help them automate and augment that pretty much end to end. And what does that look like in practice? Well, that's, I suppose, AI being used for the creation of contracts, AI being used to help accelerate the process in negotiating contracts. So instantaneously, if someone receives a contract with our AI, they can press a button and the AI will tell them what clauses they can agree to, which ones they can't, what the risk is, and what language they should use instead. And then AI being able to answer any business questions of all of their contracts, which a great example would be Yokogawa used to spend about 7 days answering business questions. That's now reduced down to 15 minutes at a maximum. So really that end-to-end nature is how businesses of all different sizes are really using the AI. You asked what are some of the limitations. Well, look, at the moment, the way that the AI has been built, it's really to automate those low value repetitive tasks. It's not to do the complex reasoning and it's not to do the complex advice. But fundamentally, if you can free up people's time so that they've got more space to focus on that, then that's absolutely amazing.
I'm wondering, are there areas of law which lend themselves to using your technology with the clients that you're working with? Do you find there's specific sectors where this really works well, or perhaps others where there's still development to be done before it can be applied?
I think this is it's a universal. It's kind of reaching companies universally in the sense that most companies in the world are having to review very similar contracts. Let's think about your NDAs, your sales agreements, your DPAs, and fundamentally, all of those companies want to accelerate the work that they're doing with those contracts. They want to get through them faster, so they can really focus on other things. And so that's really where AI can help businesses. That and the fact that it can really highlight key business obligations of what you've agreed to in the past, identify key information instantaneously. That's really, what I think is super powerful. If you're using AI to help you negotiate your multi-million-pound deal, you might use it to help you summarize the key information in that contract, but you're probably going to want to spend more time on it than just, relying on it to do all of the work.
I'm curious. Your company started in a Cambridge dorm room back in 2015. So that's almost 10 years ago. So you guys were doing this sort of thing way before we all started talking about large language models, right? And generative AI. So help us understand kind of what you were doing, how the last year and a half in terms of a whole different level of AI has maybe changed the game, if at all, or impacted you.
Yeah, so it's it's been unbelievably exciting over the last 2 years. Our ARR has grown 5x. And I think let's cast our minds back to 2015 when Adam and Graham, who are the founders, started the business. They started it in the Innovation Park at the University of Cambridge. And they started it because they had noticed that a lot of their friends were lawyers, and they were commenting on the hours that were being put in and sunk into very similar work. And Adam and Graham were like, look, AI is going to change the way in which humans interact with data and with content. I think we should build something for this. And really, they sold first to law firms because they wanted to get data, because they knew that any AI company that was addressing this problem, data was absolutely key. And so they spent years working with the law firms, and then they kind of moved into the in-house legal teams because fundamentally they realized that the AI worked across all different industries. So I suppose we've been doing AI before it was cool, and the changes in the developments in the models is great because you can combine them with some of the other forms of kind of working and distilling down a contract. And so the combination of what we call analytical AI and then generative AI really allows us to set ourselves apart in this market.
I wonder what your view is on how lawyers need to be trained differently to be able to take advantage of having your tools as well. People invest a lot of money in going to law school, particularly in this country. And I wonder, does it need to be overhauled to fit into an AI world?
Well, I think lots of people spend a lot of money going into law school, not to review NDAs and not to review very similar contracts.
For the junior lawyers, right?
Exactly. They're probably quite pleased that the AI can help them with that and get that off of their desk. I think, look, what we're seeing is AI is being used really to help them accelerate their training. So a lot of our companies will use it so that their paralegals or their first year's associates can get access and insights into how other people within the organization have negotiated different contracts. It's fantastic at retaining institutional knowledge. So I think that that's what we're going to start to see more of, is that whether that's in the classroom or whether that's in real life, people will start adopting AI to help accelerate whether it's their work or whether it's their knowledge, because really that's key to the success of their profession.
Makes me wonder too if it cuts down on those hourly, costs that lawyers charge, because it's like, hey, I just, threw it in the AI model.
More high value work, I think, is the part of it as well. It'd be interesting as well. Eleanor, great to talk to you. Thanks for joining us. Eleanor Lightbody there, CEO at Luminance, joining us as we're discussing legal large language models, not lawyer GPT.
No.
That's what we learned.
Not yet.
This is Bloomberg Businessweek with Carroll Massar and Tim Stenovec on Bloomberg Radio.
We're continuing our coverage of Climate Week in New York. We've got that and the UN General Assembly happening as well. But we're thinking about some of the businesses that are using new technology in ways which help the planet. This ahead of our big broadcast we have tomorrow as well, the Earthshot Innovation Prize Summit happening in the Plaza Hotel here in New York. And we'll be there thinking about some of those innovation and solutions that can help in the climate world too. So we want to talk about one company operating in this space. Archive uses its tech to help big fashion brands launch their own resale sites. They're working with the likes of Dr. Martens, North Face and Oscar de la Renta. Emily Gittins is with us. She's co-founder and CEO of Archive, and she joins us from Berkeley in California. Emily, great to have you with us on the programme. Why do brands want to be associated with second-hand versions of their clothes? This is something that I've been trying to get my head around when trying to understand. I know it's a big thing. I know people use websites to resell clothes all the time, but getting the brands involved is a really interesting development.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me on the show. So, this is a huge market already. The global secondhand market is a $230 billion market today. And for Gen Z, 40% of their clothing is secondhand. And so brands are realizing that there is this huge market for their product that is happening today, mostly on third-party marketplaces. And they're really interested in owning not only that customer experience, but also that revenue stream and helping shift to a more sustainable business model as well. And so they're some of the reasons that brands are getting involved.
So explain that relationship, working with them, and what is kind of the business model, the profitability for you guys, also what they get out of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So how this works is we build software and tools that allow brands to launch a resale business and then grow it to be, a significant portion of their overall business. So that means you could go onto the northface.com, North Face's e-commerce site, and actually buy secondhand products through the brand, facilitated through our software. For brands, originally this was really for sustainability reasons that they were getting into this, trying to reduce their overall footprint by encouraging more secondhand shopping and less new production. But what they've learned is that actually this is just a totally new revenue stream for them. And the margin on that revenue stream can be quite high, sometimes even higher than on their full price business. And so really they're thinking about it as a business case and a new growth part of their business that is very fast growing and profitable.
So you guys are business to business, correct?
That's right. Yeah, we're the behind the scenes software provider that is facilitating the software for brands to launch their own resale business, and brands can brand that however they want. So we have, New Balance Reconsidered or North Face Renewed, Doc Martens Rewear, just some examples of the brands we're working with today.
I wonder, is it how the conversation goes with some of the brands, though? Because if we're thinking about, the Oscar de la Rentas of this world, is the prestige brand, is that a very different conversation you're having with them when you're saying, look, I know that everything you make is unique and amazing and brilliant, but there's also a market for it to be resold?
That's right. Yeah, I think with the luxury sector, this is much more about highlighting the history, the heritage, the vintage pieces of their brand and owning that customer experience that customers are too often today having in maybe thrift stores or vintage stores, but not directly through the brand. It's a little bit of a different conversation for the more mass brands. That's part of it. Sometimes we'll auction off really interesting North Face products from collections from long ago. But it's also a new acquisition channel for them, right? For a lot of these brands, people are priced out of full price product and maybe buying lower quality items from a different brand. Being able to give them this discounted product in a way that, still represents the quality and the excitement around the brand is a really powerful reason for them to do it as well.
Emily, I'm wondering if the brands that you guys are working with, as you mentioned Oscar de la Renta, Doc Martens, North Face, are they realizing too that the resale customer is different from the customer who buys things that are brand new?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So over 50% of the customers who are shopping resale through our brand partners are completely new to the brand and have never shopped with them before. So it's really reaching that person that is priced out of full price product and bringing them into the brand, having them fall in love with the product and then over time stay within that ecosystem for the brand. And even for the customers that are already brand customers, they generally see a higher lifetime value for that cohort. So people are more excited about the brand when they have this resale option. They know they can resell full price product if it doesn't work out. And so they're shopping across new and used with higher lifetime value as well.
Is it a generational story as well? Is it Gen Z being influenced by thrifting brands on TikTok that's, got them into the idea of owning, secondhand clothes?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Gen Z are obsessed with thrifting. They're obsessed with secondhand and not buying stuff new. It's like I said, it's 40% of their closet. So a really big part of how they're shopping today is already secondhand, and brands want to have a piece of that. But interestingly, we have actually seen it across all generations where for some of our brands, the customers getting involved with this are a lot older. But the fact that they can do this through the brand, they can go back and maybe resell and buy pre-loved items through a brand that they know and trust versus a marketplace is compelling them to start for the first time, which is exciting to see too.
It made me wonder about something like the Real Real or something like that. What does this kind of cut into their business? I mean, it has to, I guess, ultimately, right? Or I don't know. What are you hearing?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very fast growing market. Secondhand is gonna grow by 100 billion in the next 4 years. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. And I think the way I think about it is when I'm buying new product, sometimes I like to go to a retailer and buy across a lot of brands. Sometimes I like to go direct to a brand and just buy directly through them. And so we see the secondhand market evolving in a similar way, where there's always going to be a place for cross brand marketplaces like the Real Real or Vinted.
Right.
But also brands will want to own that direct piece of the business as well.
I love vintage. I am curious, do you shop vintage?
I've only started recently, actually. So this is something that is a new world to me. And in London, I have a great range of charity shops that I shop from. But
right.
I feel like that this is elevated to a different level. But Emily, I had a question around the idea of is this also a quality control issue for the brands, that they can make sure that the versions of their products that are out there are of a certain quality because they've at least had a touch with the process of resale?
Absolutely. Yeah. Authentication, especially in the luxury sector, is a huge risk for brands, and they're seeing knockoffs on other marketplaces. And so one of the reasons to take this in-house is to control that whole process. And we can put in place a lot more authentication measures because we're partnering directly with the brand than what's possible otherwise. So yeah, it's a really good point. And glad to hear that you're buying more secondhand as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think we all are, right? I kind of love it. I have to say, I also like the idea. I do think about the environmental impact, right? Because we talk about the fashion industry so often and the impact it has, whether it's making a pair of jeans, but even much more broadly about kind of disposable fashion, right? Fast fashion and the impact it has on the environment. So I do think it's a smart thing for people to be doing. Talk to us a little bit, we are Bloomberg, talk to us a little bit more about your growth numbers because they sound pretty dramatic, but give us an idea. You've been doing this for a bit. Are you profitable? What's the growth plans here?
Yeah, we're seeing a huge amount of growth. We've been around for 3 or 4 years. We're, still a startup, but now working with 50 global brands, including the likes of, New Balance, the North Face, Doc Martens, these brands that really want this to be a large proportion of their business. And so with that, we're seeing our business grow really significantly year on year and a lot more appetite. I think what's been exciting is maybe 3 years ago, we were going out and talking to brands about why they should do this. And now they're coming to us knowing that this is going to be such a big part of their growth going forward.
Where do you see the growth path coming from? Is it going to be those higher end brands? Who are you getting the most interest from?
Yeah, I would say it's everything from kind of the mass of the market up to the luxury brands across, honestly, a range of different categories. We have a lot of success with kids brands, with accessories like handbags, outdoor brands, women's wear, menswear, and even starting to have conversations outside of fashion too, which is a really interesting thing as we think about the other categories out there too.
Yeah, I think about the kids marketplace. It's kind of interesting. I'll say at Bloomberg, there's like almost an internal marketplace, like somebody.
Oh, well, I feel like that's everywhere.
I love that.
Especially because when they're little, right? Because you barely use something, and then someone's like, "Okay, here, you got to take this. Like it's brand new. Please, make use of it."
Yeah. No, I mean, look, and it kind of opens up a whole other world as well. Outside of fashion, where else would you be thinking of going?
Yeah, I mean, home brands, kids gear, right? Not just the clothing, but think about all of the things you buy when you have kids and that can be put back into use. Electronics, gear like bikes and skis, things like that. I think that the world is our oyster. And I think just to touch on your sustainability piece, Carroll, the fashion industry alone contributes 8% of global greenhouse gas emissions, which is 3x air travel. When you think about adding kind of home and all of the consumption that we do for all types of products, that is a huge impact that we're having from producing new stuff. And a lot of times the right product exists. It's just in someone else's hands today. So how do we make it easier for consumers to match up there?
Yeah, it totally makes sense, and it certainly is something that's on a lot more consumers' minds when they go to do shopping. What's next for you guys, though? Do you stay? Capital raises, stay private for a little bit longer? What's your thinking in that front?
Yeah, we'll stay private for a little bit longer, likely raise some more capital at some point. And I think just continue to grow. Look, we're having a lot of success in the US in particular with the fashion industry, but thinking about international expansion, category expansion, and expanding our product to ultimately serve brands better and allow them to grow this into a more significant portion of their business.
What would be your next key international market?
Well, I'm from the UK, so that's a big one for us. A lot of demand from the UK and the rest of Europe. Honestly, we're seeing a lot of consumer behavior change and policy change over in Europe. So countries like in Scandinavia, Germany, France, really far ahead of this trend on a lot of fronts. So I think we'll be there soon.
Very cool stuff. And I do think it's really so much more of a way people are shopping increasingly. I've done it like for a wedding, you can really tap into some great brands, some great things at a much reduced cost.
Yeah, indeed. Emily, thanks so much for joining us. Emily Gittins, their co-founder and CEO of Archive, speaking to us from Berkeley in California. I think the high-end part of this is the really interesting growth area. If you were able to access luxury brands in a way that's affordable, and it can build from the company's point of view, it makes sense as well because it can build that brand loyalty that might turn into when someone moves up an income bracket, they might then be able to afford something new,
Absolutely, especially if it's like the first time you're buying something, right? And you're like, okay, I kind of like this, so let me buy another.
Do you remember your first designer handbag, Carroll Massar?
I might. Or it might have been gifted.
Yeah, also good.
Which is
available.
Which is really killer. Carroll Massar, along with Stephen Carroll, here on Bloomberg Businessweek. Stephen in for Tim. He's normally host of Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
Europe.
Oh, why do I keep doing that?
I don't know. I mean, I could do both. That's fine.
You could do probably all of it. You know what? You normally do a tease of Bloomberg Daybreak Asia, like at the end of our show. So forgive me. It's like everywhere. A default.
Yeah, I'm everything everywhere all at once.
Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Told you it was a Monday.
Look, well, actually, do you know what? This kind of speaks to what we're going to talk about next, because we're going to delve into a big global issue as well that we're going to be talking about. We've mentioned that it's Climate Week here in New York as well, but it's also World Alzheimer's Month, and World Alzheimer's Day was on the 21st of September as well. And of course, the real aim of that event is to try and raise awareness about this illness that just is affecting so many people all over the world.
Yeah, it's about 55 million people that are believed to be living with Alzheimer's disease or other dementias. In the U.S. alone, we're talking about almost 7 million people, and that includes about 200,000 people under the age of 65 with what they call younger onset Alzheimer's. So let's get to it, because I do feel like when we talk about the medical world or healthcare or treatments, that this is one of the things that a lot of companies, drug companies in particular, are working on to find a better way to treat it, find it, cure it, if you will, kind of one of those holy grails. So on that, we welcome Dr. Alicia Algeciras-Schimnich, professor of laboratory medicine and pathology at the Mayo Clinic, with us from Rochester, Minnesota. Doctor, it's great to have you here with Stephen and myself. First of all, give us an idea of kind of where we are in terms of Alzheimer's. We threw out some numbers, but it does sound like, are we seeing more younger individuals getting it? Tell us what we are seeing on a global scale.
Yes, what we're seeing is an increased number of individuals that are being diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, in part because of the newer diagnostic options that are available, as well as the availability now of disease or therapies to treat the disease and slow down the progression of the symptoms. So that availability of therapies now has increased the need for diagnostic testing.
Can you explain to us the importance of early diagnosis and how that feeds into then somebody's both care that they need, but also how it affects the evolution of the disease?
Yes, absolutely. The early diagnosis is critical for patients presenting with symptoms of cognitive decline, because the earlier that we can diagnose the patient with Alzheimer's disease, the earlier and the more timely the therapies will be. And the therapies that are available today are meant to be used in patients where when the symptoms are still mild, because that's when they are more effective in slowing down the progression of those symptoms. And even in individuals that might not be eligible for the newer therapies, having an early diagnosis can help with lifestyle changes that might still benefit and improve their quality of life for a longer time.
Can you give us some examples of what those lifestyle changes are? I think this is just an issue that so many of our listeners will be thinking about. This is something that is affecting, I think, all of us, it's fair to say. So what changes in how one's lifestyle might shift if you did have an early diagnosis?
Yes, absolutely. There are a number of modifiable lifestyle changes that has been described: diet, exercise, smoking. These are all different areas that can be approached to modify and improve their health.
So tell us about the tests that you guys have developed. What do we need to know, and is it put into effect yet or put into use?
Yes, absolutely. So the test that we developed, it measures one of the early changes that happen in the brain of patients with Alzheimer's disease. And this change is the accumulation of a protein named or called beta amyloid. And this protein accumulates and forms plaque in the brain that eventually leads to the symptoms the patients develop. The test that we offer, which is called p-tau217, is a blood test that allows for the detection of those, the accumulation of that beta amyloid protein in the brain.
And how widespread is that testing being available? How quickly can it be made available to a wider number of people?
Yes, actually, it is available to any provider around the world can order this test through Mayo Clinic laboratories. And we do require that a provider actually order the test. So this is not a test that can be ordered by patients. And we also need to keep in mind that these tests at this time have been optimized to detect Alzheimer's, to diagnose Alzheimer's disease in patients with symptoms. So it is very important that it is performed in patients presenting with symptoms of cognitive decline. But any provider can order that on their patient.
What kind of symptoms? Because as you said, it's important to catch all of this early in order for a better outcome. So what kind of symptoms are likely so that a patient knows to go to their doctor and maybe ask about it?
Yes, so in general, there are symptoms of what we refer as mild cognitive impairment, so maybe some forgetfulness and some memory loss and such. But what happens is that when these patients will go to the provider, they will do a battery of tests to look at their cognitive performance, whether they can recall some objects or names and various cognitive testing, which then can determine whether they have mild cognitive impairment. And those are the ones that will benefit the most from these tests at this time.
What sort of interest are you getting? What sort of demand is there for this test from providers? And is it from the US alone, or is it more global?
No, we receive samples from around the world, actually, and there has been great interest. We are surpassing the test volumes that we have originally predicted. So there is a lot of excitement for the test because there is a need to be able to have a non-invasive test that can help diagnose patients.
Just real quickly, 10 seconds, is it covered by insurance typically?
Yes, it is covered by insurance, but the amount that is reimbursed, it depends on the insurer provider.
Is it an expensive test, real quickly?
It's not. It's cheaper than other modalities that are available today, such as the PET, which involve looking for amyloid protein in the brain, or the CSF, or the spinal fluid testing.
Dr. Alicia Algeciras-Schimnich, thank you so much.